Hi, this is Justin Kantor of SoulTracks.com. For the second installment of my Now and Then with Justin Kantor column, I had the honor of speaking with an awesome bass player, vocalist, and songwriter, Joyce Fenderella Irby of Klymaxx. Joyce talked with me at length about her current endeavors, which include a nonprofit organization called Jams for Animals, where she's using her gift for music to help out animals in need, and also about her very storied and colorful history in the music business before, during, and after Klymaxx. What you're about to hear are some excerpts from our conversation, and if you'd like to learn more about what she has been up to and what she's done through the years, be sure to read the full article on soultracks.com. So I thought that we'd start by talking about something that I think is a big part of what you're involved in now, which is Jams for Animals. And you've been doing it for, I know, at least about 4 years now. At least that's when I first saw your website for it. So what inspired you to start this organization?
Jams for Animals. I just started having an affinity for animals the last 20 years, and especially cats, because a lot of people don't like cats.
Right.
They do really frightening things to them. And then I'm a Leo also.
Oh, me too.
And I could see some of myself in them from time to time.
Interesting.
And it's just something that grew over time. And then I had this experience. I had a friend who trains lions for TV and film.
Okay.
And he was able to get me backstage at a circus.
Okay.
Because I hear people talking about, treatment of animals, and I'm not trying to make anybody the devil or anything
No,
like that.
I know.
But I wanted to go and see some things for myself.
Yeah.
And I'm crazy about elephants. I think they're just so majestic and incredible.
Yeah.
And I was backstage, and there were these 3 elephants, Minnie, Susie, and Bunny, and they are older than me. It's like they're like in their 60s or something.
Yeah.
And I was standing right beside them. They were under this tent, but I was able to go under the tent because my friend got me access, and I was just standing there quietly. And they were getting pressure washed with bleach, and one of them was on her knees, and I could tell she was arthritic, and she just looked at me, and just looking into her eyes just made me feel I've got to express something in a way that makes people care about them. It's not like they weren't being beaten or anything like that, but I'm like, can she retire? She's like over 65.
Exactly, yeah.
How and
no humility, really. Yeah.
And they are on concrete, and it's like, my joints, I'm like in my 50s, and my joints are hurting.
Right.
And I'm like, can they have some, can they just have better treatment?
Some accommodations or something. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I just thought, what can I do? Music. My gift is music. And so I'm going to do music that incorporates animals in a way that doesn't turn people off if you don't like animals.
Right. One of the things I read about on the website was, I don't know if it's something that's completed at this point or that you're working on, but I read about a shelter in suburban Atlanta with the goal of having animals that come from homes with domestic violence.
Yes.
Can you tell me about that?
There's a domestic violence shelter here. I think it's called Amsha House. I'm not sure, so
Okay.
I apologize, people. And I think they're like the only one that takes women with pets. And I'm thinking, if you're in a situation where you're being violated or your children are being violated, usually the pets are being violated too, but you have to flee, and then you have to leave the one family member that you care about to continue to be violated because you can't find any place. So actually the sheriff, I live in Clayton County in suburban Atlanta, the sheriff here agreed to help me.
Okay.
With trying to, we haven't started yet.
Okay.
But he has agreed to assist me with setting up a program where if you dial 911 here for domestic violence or whatever, it's like you go to a shelter, they'll come pick up the violator, and we'll take the pet too. That's the goal.
Okay, nice. Yeah, that's yeah.
and it's something. It's a dream right now, but at least with the city officials, we're all cool saying, okay, this is a plan we can put into motion at some point. And the sheriff even asked about having the shelter on the, on the sheriff's property, so everything is
central.
In the same place. It's central, and it may or may not happen that way.
Okay.
But at least the city government and the sheriff are trying to help me with making this a reality. And it'll probably take a couple of years because I have to raise the money to actually build it. But I think after getting more visibility, ultimately, I think that'll be possible.
So when people... Now, it's interesting because even before Klymaxx, you had some professional experiences. And one thing that was really surprised me when you told me this in a message a few years ago on Facebook was you had actually worked with some really legendary players in funk early on, like Larry Graham and George Clinton. What was the circumstance in which you worked with them?
I decided I had to do music, so I would take my bass guitar and I would stand outside at concerts in the North Carolina area, Fayetteville, Charlotte, Greensboro, and Raleigh.
Okay.
And I would drive to them, and the Brothers Johnson were doing concerts, Larry Graham was doing concerts, and there was this group called Mother's Finest that still works around here.
Them.
So Larry Graham, Lewis Johnson, and Wizard, who plays bass for Mother's Finest, I was like, I just want to sit with you for a minute. And so they knew, they was like, I was a musician, and they were kind of impressed that I would just be standing out there with a bass, wanting to sit with them.
So you would just arrive early, like for when they arrived?
So yeah. Okay, I'd be there. Okay. I'd get up in the morning, and I'd be there when they were doing like loading. I would be standing there for hours.
Wow.
But it paid off for me because I got to sit with all of them.
Nice.
And they would just show me different things about playing bass. And then George, what's funny is I signed with George Clinton even before Klymaxx.
Okay.
And George was sort of like my dad after a while. And I'd go to his concerts, and he'd be like, have her come in. And then after every show, he and I would go to his room. It's funny, he would have like double beds. He'd have like two beds, and I'd sit on one bed, and I'd play the bass, and he'd sit there and listen to me play for about 15 minutes, and he'd tell me, oh, you're so wonderful, you're going to be so great. And then I'd leave, and then everybody waiting to do drugs, standing outside his room, could finally come in.
Wow.
It was so
and you were
funny.
But you had this record that was as Fenderella on a subsidiary of TK Records called A Wild and Crazy Song, and the Funk's Gone Crazy on the B-side. How did that come about? Because that was a little bit before Klymaxx.
It was before Klymaxx, and it's funny, I knew George then, and I was getting ready to sign with him, and he came to the studio where I was working like as an intern in Richmond, Virginia. I went to Richmond because I met a guy who was a great musician I wanted to work with, and I went and I stayed there for like about a year.
Okay.
And there was a studio there called Alpha Audio that gave me a job, but also I had a chance to record, in the studio at night when people weren't using it with some of the guys that worked there. And that's just some stuff I did there, and I remember driving to Florida.
Okay.
I was fearless. I would drive anywhere to see anybody to say, this is my music, listen to my music.
Right.
And we met a guy named Steve Alamo down there, and we gave him the music, and they put it out, and it got a little bit of play on the East Coast. I remember Frankie Crocker picked it as one of his favorites.
Oh, really?
And then nothing happened, but whatever. I didn't care. I was excited.
Well, so that's interesting because you kind of, when you had that success, you kind of, I guess, got to explore both that funk part of you and the pop part of you because, of course, with I Miss You being on there and becoming such a big crossover hit for you guys. As you mentioned, Lynn wrote that song. Was that something that she wrote with you in mind to sing it? Or
No, Lorena was supposed to sing it.
Okay.
And I think she was sick.
Okay.
And I guess the voice of Jimmy Jam was in their heads. She needs to sing. I'm like, okay.
And one thing that sometimes people will mention, I think, is the influence seeming of Michael Jackson, or they kind of maybe compare your vocal a little. Was he an influence on you, or did you think about that at all? Like people that
No,
influenced
absolutely.
you?
I grew up, when I was 14, I went insane when they came out because before them there was Stevie Wonder, who, was sort of young.
Uh huh.
But when you're 14 and 15, it's like, why do you have to listen to people who were in their 30s and 40s singing?
Oh, right,
So
right.
I was crazy about them. I had a crush on Jermaine when I was a kid because he had a great smile and he played bass, and I was
Oh,
like, I can
yeah,
do
he's
that.
a
Right. And then I was
multi-instrumentalist. Yeah.
playing all his bass parts. And as I got older, it's funny, I had an experience with Joe Jackson at a place on Sunset
Oh, really?
called Carlos and Charlie's.
Okay.
And we were judging. The group was out. I Miss You was a big hit right then,
Uh huh.
and the group was out, and so we were judges of a talent contest.
Oh, okay.
He was sitting beside me,
Uh huh.
and he leaned over to me and he said something, I'm paraphrasing now,
Uh
something
huh.
to the effect of, yeah, that song where you sound like Mike, the kids at the house complaining. I said, okay. I said, listen. I said, first of all, that's a wonderful compliment, but I said, do I sound like a girl? He's like, yeah. I said, does he sound like a girl? Yeah. I said, oh, I rest my case.
That's funny. Wow.
And then, but here's something, how it comes full circle. I had the opportunity to host what would have been Michael's 55th birthday party
Oh.
at Gary, Indiana, and spend time with a couple of his kids and family members and his mom. And I got to meet Mrs. Jackson for the first
Oh,
time.
wow. Okay.
So I sang You Are Not Alone.
Okay.
Also, in the middle of my hosting and doing I did You Are Not Alone and went into I Miss You.
Okay.
And so after that, I remember I was shaking. I was so excited to meet her. And
Uh-huh.
she held my hand and she said, you sound so beautiful.
Oh.
I said, Mrs. Jackson, thank you so much.
That's wonderful.
I said, I didn't know Michael. I met him once. I didn't know him. I know he
Uh-huh.
was your son. We all love and miss him so much. And thank you for giving me the opportunity to, to do this tribute for you.
That's
So
awesome.
I never planned to sound like him, but if I say that I don't get, it's like sometimes I'll be singing something like now, and
Uh-huh.
I'll feel like I'm like, get away, Michael, get away. It's like I
It just
start
comes out
channeling
naturally,
some
yeah.
of his inflection if I'm doing an up tempo song.
Uh-huh. Yeah.